Across parts of the Arab world and the Swahili coast, including places like Zanzibar, there is a long standing belief that jinn can be bound to objects or places to protect them. There are stories from the Arab Peninsula and the coast of East Africa about objects that do not belong to anyone anymore, but somehow they are still being watched. And if you ever come across one, you are supposed to leave it exactly where it is. And today's story is about a young man who didn't. Welcome to Beyond Earth, your go to story channel about strange phenomena and paranormal events that actually happened that will leave you wondering whether, just whether, there's something beyond. If you are a fan of such stories, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment what you think about today's video. Let's get started. In today's story, the incident happened on 18th December 2009 in the island of Zanzibar off the coast of Tanzania in East Africa. Zanzibar is one of the best tourist destinations along the coast of East Africa. It features beautiful beaches and lush green environment with coconut trees densely populated on the beaches. Its warm weather in the late months of the year makes it an ideal holiday destination for tourists from all over the world. It is here that it all happened. It was a warm December evening in Zanzibar, the kind where the ocean breeze feels soft and the sky melts into the deep blue from the orange as the sun disappears beyond the horizon. Along one of the quieter beaches in Zanzibar, a young man known as Hassan was taking a walk by himself that evening. Hassan had visited the island from the city of Mombasa in Kenya, and he was enjoying the peaceful, quiet atmosphere of Zanzibar away from the bustling, busy life of the city of Mombasa. Well, the beach was nearly empty. At this time, just the sound of waves and the occasional cry of distant seabirds. And that is when he saw it. Lying on the sand, just a few meters from the shoreline, was a camera, not broken, not damaged, just sitting there. Hassan looked around trying to confirm something. There were no people, no footprints leading to or away from the camera, no bag indicating that someone had dropped it. So this was quite strange. It felt strange, honestly, because the camera was basically new, and it was against all logic that it should be left behind on the beach unattended. However, curiosity got the part of Hassan and he approached it and picked it up. At first, nothing seemed unusual. It was heavier than expected, cold to the touch, despite the warm air. He turned it over in his hands, pressed down the button, but the screen didn't turn on. Hassan didn't think a big deal about this camera not working. He thought that perhaps it had a dead battery or had a glitch, and that's why it didn't work. So thinking that he has just found something valuable, a precious commodity, Hassan took the camera, slipped it into his bag, and started walking back to where he was being accommodated. Even though that beach was quite particularly safe, with almost nil incidences of unlawful activity, Hassan reportedly felt a little bit uneasy. He felt as if someone was watching him or someone was following him. In fact, at one particular moment as he was walking back towards the place where he was being accommodated, he reported having heard some whispers around him. While he looked around and confirmed there was no one and hurriedly left the place towards the hotel where he was being accommodated for the meanwhile. But after walking for about half an hour, he arrived at his room at around 8:30 p.m. and the uneasy feeling that he had left him. Once inside, he was quite relieved and relaxed. He took the camera from his bag, placed it on a chair in the room, and went off for dinner at a nearby hotel room, which was just a couple of 100 feet away. He ate hastily and then hurriedly went back to his room. But inasmuch as he tried to brave himself and comfort himself, there was still this uneasy feeling about him, and he hated especially being outside. When he got back to his room, what he found made him more afraid. This was the first sign that he'd picked something unusual, and the sign was this. The chair that had the camera was farther away from the bed, and as he could clearly remember, the chair was by the bedside when he had put the camera there before he went out to look for dinner. And as if that was not enough, he actually saw another sign that was much more scary. Previously, before he went out for dinner, he had left the camera with the lens facing towards the ceiling. But when he came and opened the door, he found that the camera had now turned and was facing the door as if it was taking a picture of him. He stood there, hesitant at first, unsure of what to do next. Well, a lot of thoughts came into his mind, and at that time, he thought that probably the attendants who used to clean the rooms had come into the room and probably disorganized the room. But he brushed off that thought because the attendants only came in the morning between 11 a.m. and 12 noon. So it was quite unexpected that an attendant should enter the room way past 8:30 p.m. in the evening. Another thought that came into his mind was probably a burglar. But again, he dismissed that because why would a burglar enter into a room and leave a brand new camera on the chair, only just moving the chair a little feet away from where it is supposed to be? This was strange. It didn't just make sense, but he mustered some courage, returned to the chair to its rightful position and the camera faced the ceiling, and got into bed. Well, since he was feeling quite uncomfortable and scared, he left the lights on. Hassan lay down facing up towards the ceiling, and many thoughts kept crossing his mind. But since nothing unusual happened, sleep got better part of him, and he finally slept. Sometime later that night, everything, and I mean everything, changed. Hours later, sometime around midnight, Hassan was asleep in his room when he woke up suddenly. He thought he had heard a chair moving. He lay still, he had left the lights on, and at this time they had gone off. He thought that there had been a blackout, but a security light that was in the adjacent house was on. He took his phone from under the pillow, lit up the room, and the chair and the camera were still as he had left them. He breathed out a sigh of relief and went back to sleep. But the scariest part was yet to play out. At around 1:30 a.m. that night, Hassan woke up, but this time around, not from a sound, but from a feeling, the kind that makes your chest tighten, as if someone was choking him down. He gasped for air, trying to fight an imaginary assailant, and suddenly the feeling abated. He lay still in the darkness, listening. At first there was silence, but then a sound came. Soft, mechanical, a faint clicking, coming from the exact place that the chair was, inside his room. It was as if someone was taking a photo. Hassan slowly sat up, and as he sat up, suddenly the lights came on. And that is when he heard it. For the first time, a low voice, a low whisper, coming from the direction of the camera. His heart began to race. He started sweating. He stared at the camera for several seconds, frozen, trying to convince himself that he was imagining it. But then it happened again. A whisper, this time clear, coming from the same direction of the chair from the camera. He was afraid, his heart was racing, and he probably thought that the camera had now turned itself on and was probably playing a video recording that was in its memory. With shaking hands, Hassan got out of bed and slowly walked toward the camera, every step feeling heavier than the last. He reached down the chair and picked up the camera. The moment it was in his hands, the whispering completely stopped, and then there was silence. Hassan picked up the camera And when he looked at it, it was off. Now he felt more confused because he was definitely sure that he had heard a voice coming from the camera. But in what he thought that the camera would be on to play the voice, the camera was still off. Well, for a few seconds, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the camera turned on by itself. The screen flickered into life, and what Hassan saw made his blood run cold. It wasn't a menu, it wasn't photos, it wasn't a recorded video, it was a live image. And not of anyone else, but of Hassan himself, standing in his room. But the angle wasn't from the camera in his hands, it was from somewhere else behind him. Hassan spun around behind him, but there was nothing. But when he turned to look at the camera again, something had changed. The image had changed, and now it was closer, too close, as if something or someone was standing just right behind him. But suddenly the voice returned, louder, angrier, not human-like. It was like a hollow voice, and Hassan tried as if he would run out of the room, and what happened next, Hassan would struggle to explain. He said something invisible struck him, knocking him to the ground. The camera fell off from his hand, but the voice didn't stop. It surrounded him, whispering, shouting, demanding, and then everything went black. Well, it was around 9 a.m. in the morning when Hassan woke up. He had this dizzy feeling and a sharp headache, and he was lying on the ground. He sat up slowly and looked around. There was nothing. He looked at the door. It was still closed. The lights were still on. But what shocked him much more was that when he looked everywhere in the room, the camera was not there. It had completely gone. It had vanished. When he later told the story to the locals in the area, they didn't act surprised. They nodded, and one single word kept coming from their mouths: Majini, which means jinns or genies. Because out there in the East African coast, this is not a strange phenomenon. In fact, these jinns will often present themselves in living things form, especially black cats, which would suddenly appear and disappear. Because along the Swahili coast, there's an old belief that some people, when they own something valuable, they don't just lock it away. They don't call security to provide security over it. They don't look for bodyguards or for security companies to keep it safe. Instead, they protect it with something unseen, something that does not forget, something that doesn't forgive: a jinn. So if you're planning to visit the East African coast or even in the Arab countries, and if you find something valuable lying by itself where it shouldn't be, ask yourself one question before you pick it up. Is it really lost? Or is it left there intentionally because it is guarded?